Alrighty guys, my name is Tyler Mellon. We are the bosses, and we're going to be presenting to you guys today about unions. I'll be starting off with a brief history of unions. So the origins of unions date back to the 18th century with the introduction of the Industrial Revolution. There was a huge surge of workers who were interested in representation of their labor within production areas. So that's the height of unions so far. So the early U.S. Unions were instrumental in our nation's revolution. They were meeting places, they were groups of men before militiamen were involved that they were able to pull people from to have ready for our troops back in the day. So this brings us to our most famous union. This is the American Federation of Labor. This was started in 1806 by Samuel Gompers. This was one of the first official labor unions in the United States. This brings us to the second oldest union, the Congress of Industrial Organizations, also known as the CIO. This was started by John Lewis several years after AFL in 1886. So the peak of power of unions was around the 1970s. The private sector companies, union membership has declined since then severely. But public memberships are increasing and are continuing to increase today. So the Clayton Antitrust Act was brought out in 1914. This led employees to be able to boycott and strike against their employers if they were unhappy or disgruntled with the representation. So this led to the Fair Labor Standards Act, which was signed by Franklin Roosevelt. This brought the light to child labor laws, as well as mandatory equal pay and overtime for minimum wage. So this brought along several disagreements between union members. So this was the introduction of the strike. The first one officially happened in 1791. It was over Philadelphia Carpenters Labor Union. They were advocating for the 10-hour workday. So union growth happened exponentially between the Civil War and World War II, but it peaked around the Roaring 20s. Because the economy was so great back then, people thought that unions were basically irrelevant at the time. Around the Great Depression, this trend completely reversed. Franklin's New Deal advocated for unions, and because people were searching for work, they wanted to be represented by unions when they were in factories. So the defense industry during World War II actually prohibited some unions from striking because they thought it would impede wartime build efforts. So they thought it was going to slow down production lines. Certain unions were not allowed to strike, but actually saw waves of strikes towards the end. So decreasing power at this time became very strict, and corruption and complacency set in with the leaders of union organizations. So this was the beginning of the decline of their power. So unions actually have a pretty important part in politics. So President Obama had union backers behind him, and they were very influential in getting him elected in 2008 and re-elected in 2012. So some of the most powerful international unions is the All China Federation of Trade Unions. This is the only union to be able to defeat Walmart. So Walmart is very well known for not wanting their employees to unionize. And then the Congress of South African Trade Unions was very influential in dismantling apartheid in 1990. Some powerful American unions is the National Education Association with 3 million members, the Service Employees International Union with 2 million members, and the Brotherhood of Teamsters with 1.5 million members. These are all still very prevalent in today's society. So a means for celebration. So you've all heard of Labor Day. It is a national holiday which celebrates the economic achievements and advancements of unions throughout the history. It happens the first Monday of every September. First one happened in 1882. And Peter J. McGuire is known for creating the national holiday of Labor Day. He was a member of the Brotherhood of Carpenters Union and was also an instrumental leader in the creation of the American Federation of Labor. So his last days were spent in New Jersey. He was actually buried in New Jersey at Arlington Cemetery in Pennsauken.
So the next process would be collective bargaining. And once employees vote to unionize, the collective bargaining process begins. Technically what that is a negotiation between an employer and a representative of the union. And this can be done with the one employer who's representing a company shareholder or a group of businesses. There are non-negotiable rights within the bargaining agreement, which are the right to manage and operate the business, hire, promote, discharge employees, or direct the work of employees and establish operational policies. However, in the agreement, there may be a process outlined by the union on how these processes should work. And the main purpose of the negotiations is for the management and the union to reach a contract agreement. Once the contract is agreed upon, it's put into place for a specified period of time. After the time is up, negotiations must take place again and a new contract must be made. An important point in the collective bargaining process is union security. So the way unions do this is by recruiting members and collecting union dues. So a checkout provision can be negotiated, which allows the employer to automatically deduct dues from union members' paychecks, and this will ensure a steady stream of dues paid to the union. And in order to recruit new members, the union may require a union shop. Union shops require people to join the union within a certain time period of joining the organization. However, these union shops are illegal in right-to-work states. And we have 22 states that have laws which prohibit a requirement to join a union or pay dues to the union. But to get around these laws, agency shops were created, and they don't require workers to join a union, but they still collect the union dues from the workers. And additionally, a closed shop is an arrangement that only allows union members to be hired, and it was allowed until it became illegal under the Taft-Hartley Act. In the collective bargaining process, both parties are legally bound to bargain in good faith. Good faith bargaining deals with problems like refusal of either party to meet and attempt to bargain with the other party, engaging in sham or misleading, or making changes to the terms of an existing agreement without consulting the other party. There are many bargaining topics that take place, like mandatory topics, which include wages, health, safety, management rights, and work conditions, permissive topics, which are drug testing, or illegal topics, which could be discriminatory in nature. So in order for a collective bargaining process to be effective, there have to be 5 core topics that must be touched upon, one of them being preparation, discussion, proposal, bargaining, and the final agreement. The first step is preparation. So in this step, the team must obtain knowledge of the organization. They must know the working conditions and the dissatisfaction that employees have with those working conditions. And additionally, the old contracts have to be reviewed to establish new objectives. And the team should also prepare and anticipate union demands to better prepare for compromise. The second step involves both parties agreeing on how the timelines will be set for negotiations. In this initial conversation, the ground rules are set for how the negotiation will occur, and it will lay the foundation for the work to come. During the proposal style, each party comes to the table with proposals, so this will involve initial opening statements and options that exist to resolve the situations that the company is facing. And it is important to come with a let's make this work attitude. The next step will be bargaining, which involves each party discussing back and forth which requests can be honored and which requests can't be honored. The final stage is the final agreement, in which both parties come to settlement, a new contract is written, and the union members can vote on whether they want to accept the contract or not. If the union members can't accept the contract, a new one must be made, and the process begins all over again. A bargaining impasse occurs when the two parties are unable to reach a consensus on the collective bargaining agreement, and various strikes can take place to show the displeasure of workers. An economic strike is one of them, and this one stems from unhappiness about the economic conditions during a contract negotiation. An example of one would be the Verizon strike. So in the summer of 2011, 45,000 Verizon workers rallied when the contract negotiations failed. The two unions, which were the Communication Workers of America and International Brotherhood of Electric Workers, claimed the contract was unfair because it required Verizon workers to contribute more to health plans. It also froze pensions and reduced sick time. Another type of strike is a lockout. So the goal is to put pressure on the union to accept the contract by preventing workers from working in their companies. A lockout could only be legally conducted, though, if an existing collective bargaining agreement has expired and there is truly an impasse in contract negotiations. Another form would be a slowdown. Some organizations will only impose a lockout if its workers engage in a slowdown. So this is when workers decide that they are going to lessen their productivity. And unions prefer to do slowdowns because workers can still get paid, where if they go on strike, they won't get paid. Other union members may engage in a sick-out or a walkout. And in a sick-out, members call it sick, and the goal is to show the organization how unproductive it will be if the workers decide to go on strike. In a walkout, workers engage in an unannounced refusal to perform their job. This tactic may be illegal, though, if the conduct is irresponsible or indefensible in the eyes of a judge. Finally, wildcat strikes are not authorized by the union, they are illegal, and they violate the collective bargaining agreement. So in such situations as these, the employer has the legal right to fire the employees involved and sue the union for any damages incurred. Finally, when working with labor unions, a clear understanding of the contract is imperative for all HR professionals. An intimate knowledge of the collective bargaining agreement should be had, and they should be aware of the components of the contract that can affect dealings with employees. So, next page, we'll talk about the administration of the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start out with is what a grievance actually is, just to enlighten everybody on what it actually is we're talking about. A claim made by an employee that he or she is adversely affected by the misinterpretation or the misapplication of a written company policy or collectively bargained agreement. Basically, the grievance procedure that they have means that an internal dispute resolution by which an employee may have his or his grievances addressed. There are some things that are happening in business that you could consider whether or not it's right to go for the grievance. Things you're being asked to do, part of your job is one of them, as well as the terms and conditions of your employment per contract. For example, your pay, like wages, raises, or anything like that. Grievance procedures may differ based on employer, but based off of everything that I've seen research-wise, most companies have a general idea of where they're supposed to go and how they're supposed to outline everything. The supervisor and the union representative could agree on no valid existence of a grievance is there. Grievance may be resolved, and also the grievance may not be resolved to the employee's satisfaction, so it moves on to the next step. These procedures have steps as well. Even if they differ based on company, they will have the same general idea of where they want to handle the situation. Step one is to discuss the complaint with the immediate supervisor. The employee should first discuss it in a non-formal environment so that it looks better for them and that it could be resolved without actually having to file any paperwork. Step two is prepare and submit a complaint form procedure for a human resource consultant to review and look at by a second level supervisor. If the employee feels that the complaint was not resolved in the discussion with the immediate supervisor, they may submit a formal grievance. Step 3 would be to submit a complaint procedure form for final appeal at the appropriate